All right, welcome everyone. It is a dreary, rainy day in Raleigh, North Carolina, where Rachel and myself are located. Hopefully, y'all are in more dry, sunny areas. Feel free to drop your location in the chat. Let us know. Send some sunshine our way, please. So we're going to go ahead and get things kicked off here today. So this is our second webinar in our new monthly webinar series, your Marketing Blueprint Next Level Strategies. Today we're going to be talking about employer branding, what it is, and how to build it with Rachel Kirkpatrick, or as we like to call her, RK. I'll let her explain that one to y'all. She's our Senior Director of Client Success here at Coalmarch by Workwave. And we'll take some questions throughout. I believe Rachel will ask a few questions throughout the presentation. We'll have some time for questions at the end as well. And keep an eye out for some fun resources sprinkled in within the presentation. We have a lot of QR codes in there, and we'll be sure to send out a recording after the webinar is completed. And Rachel, I'll pass it on over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Courtney. Good morning, everyone. So glad you can join us. And yes, please, would love to see where everyone's coming from. Introduce yourself in the chat. I'm going to be utilizing the chat throughout today's webinar. I know it always stinks being virtual, so might as well get a little interaction in place. But like Courtney said, my name is Rachel Kirkpatrick. I am Coalmarch's Senior Director of Client Success. And yes, everyone refers to me as RK. So if I have any friendly faces in the crowd that already know me, you may already know the team, and many of our clients refer to me as RK because we have 4 different Rachels in the Coalmarch group. Definitely a popular name in the 80s and 90s. So we have to have something that signals who we are. So RK is it, and people have referred to me as RK for the last 10 years. So I turn, out in public, RK, I will respond to you. But thank you so much for coming. I imagine that this will last around 30 minutes. The attention span is getting shorter and shorter every day. So I'm not going to have you sit here for a full hour. Would love to hear from you and hear more about what you guys are doing as far as your employer brand, share ideas. I know with webinars and in-person training sessions, half the time you learn more from the audience than the presenters. So would really like to see your interaction today. So let's kick it off. Let's talk about our agenda. So first, of course, let's define what an employer brand is, then how to build your brand, how to share your brand, and then some mistakes to avoid. All right, so let's first talk about what an employer brand is. So when talking about your employer brand, it's specifically about your reputation and what you bring to the table. So in fact, like I have here, 86% of workers would not apply for or continue to work for a company with a bad reputation with former employees or the general public. We also have to remember that as an employer in field service, you're not only competing with employers in your same industry, you're competing with just about any service-based business. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to define our employer brand and really attract those who are looking to come on board with us. So in addition, your employer brand needs to be much more about than what you do or how you do it, but what your potential employees can get out of working at your company. So keep in mind, it's not the same brand you communicate to your customers, but the values, can obviously be shared. Something to consider also when creating or tweaking your employer brand, what you brought to the table 10 years ago isn't competitive anymore. Gen Z, they're currently between 11 and 26. They're getting into the workforce now. And millennials, they're between 27 and 42 right now. They value different things than maybe what the previous generations are, and different between themselves. Gen Z and millennials value different things. So here's an example of what millennials in particular value about their workplace. Keep these in mind as we go through the presentation and you evaluate, your own employer brand and target employee. But I imagine we are hiring a lot of millennials. So they're looking at purpose, clear expectations for management, fair pay, profit sharing, work-life balance, according to Great Place to Work. When someone is doing their research on a potential company to work for, where do you think they're looking? Take a moment to think about your company. What are they going to find as they're doing their research? Of course, these days, most of that is online. So what are they going to find when they are researching your brand from an employee angle? We'll talk a little bit more about this later on. So why does it matter to you what your employer brand is? I think we can all agree that your reputation and your employer reputation matters, but let's just make sure we're crystal clear when it comes to having a top of the line employer brand. You're going to see your ability to attract top talent increase, and you're going to see retention and engagement improve as well. But one thing that I will say multiple times throughout this presentation, it only works if your brand is transparent and authentic. It only works if your brand is transparent and authentic. You can shout from the rooftops all day that you value family and work-life balance, but if you don't actually live by this and do it, have actions that back it up, it will catch up with you. So to read a little bit more about how employer brands can impact your business and your bottom line, I have a QR code in the right-hand corner for you to leverage more resources that we have at Coalmarch. So now that we're all on the same page about what an employer brand is, let's talk a little bit about how to build it. Or if you have a solid brand and you feel really confident in your brand, maybe just need to tweak it, these may be helpful tips and tricks as well. First, we have to start from the beginning. I know this is nothing new, but truly I feel people skip this step or think they already know it, but evaluating your company mission and core values. Just like ourselves, we change over time, society changes, your core values, your brand, your mission also changes. So how is our mission and value shifting as we shift as people? Have you set values or a mission, and are you actually holding true to them? So quite literally, take 5 to 10 minutes. Maybe you have a scratch piece of paper or documentation within your business that you have on your computer right now. Take 5 to 10 minutes to evaluate your mission and your values. Aside from them being displayed, in your company handbook or on your website, how are you intentionally incorporating your values into your team's day-to-day life? How do you actually hold true to those values? If you have any ideas, would love to hear them in the chat. How are you actually tangibly using your values day to day? Say, do you value honesty and transparency? How do you showcase this? Are you talking about it in company meetings or newsletters where you're detailing company financial performance? That's definitely one thing that comes to mind when I think about honesty and transparency within a business. Are you sharing financial information with your team? If you're not, could be a way to incorporate that value of transparency within your business. Are you holding employees accountable to their own honesty, if honesty is a value of yours? Are you letting people get away with things that shouldn't? I actually was watching a show. I won't go into detail. Big reality TV fan. I'm sure many of you on the call today are not into reality TV. That's okay. But I was watching, one of those real estate shows, and it was talking about a real estate company where their number one rule is no assholes. They do not employ assholes. And I just thought it was so true. It's so simple, and everyone knows, what that means. And they really, throughout the show, it rang true. Things would happen on the show, drama, of course, reality TV, and they backed their no asshole rule. And I really respected that. I thought it was very, transparent of them to have that as one of their values. All right, so we have our values. you'll see here on the screen, these are actually WorkWave's core values, and something that I personally really push with my team and making sure that we're, providing these to our customers, our clients, and also to each other. So next, once we have our core values and our mission, and those are set in stone, next thing to evaluate, such an important one, is your unique value proposition. So when it comes to what sets you apart, there are several different aspects that I want you to consider and really evaluate. Especially as your employees' wants and needs shift, like we were talking about, we have to consider these 4 components as far as your culture and your unique value proposition. So first, when we're looking at this graphic here, you have your material offerings. This includes compensation, maybe your office space, your location, say a truck. Can they take it home? Do they, get it at the office? This could be flexibility in schedules, different perks. The next, we have opportunities for growth and development. Do you help employees acquire new skills or become more valuable within their career? Training opportunities, of course, we have to do continual training throughout, but do you offer something beyond that? Promotions, different ownership areas. Maybe they're not ready for the next promotion, but they can, take a little bit more ownership in a specific area of your business. The next is connection and community. They're the benefits that come from being part of a larger group. So this includes being appreciated and valued for who you are, a sense of mutual accountability as the employer or the employee, and social relationships. So really the foundation here is having that energizing culture that allows people to really express themselves and gives them a sense of home and family that many people look for within a career or a job. Definitely one that can be overlooked in some ways, especially when we get busy. And then finally, meaning and purpose. What are your business's aspirational reasons for existing? Typically, this aligns with employees' desire to, improve their community, whether that's locally or globally, and it really answers the core question of why employees do the work that they do. Are they here just to spray bugs, or are they here to help people? And are these things that you reinforce with your team, the purpose and their meaning of being here? And our employees really bought into that. So when it comes to building your culture and sort of what sets you apart, there needs to be a balance between all 4 of these. For example, when, as we know, remote work has become an integral part of our world. Of course, less possible in the field service industries, but it has become more common within our industry. How does that shift culture? It really, in some ways, and I've experienced this personally, really left a gaping hole for that connection and community component. It doesn't mean it can't exist, but with remote work, but it's definitely been hard to adjust. So how do we bring that connection and community to the table when, our values shift and our wants and needs shift as employees and employers? So I'm definitely interested to hear some of the things that you're currently doing that may fit into one of these categories. Definitely share in the chat if you'd like. How are you, what material offerings are you doing? How are you doing growth and development within your organization? How are you really leaning into that meaning and purpose within your business? Would love to hear it. All right, so next step, take those components and look at what you have compared to what your employees need. It's hard to know what they need without talking to them. So that's the biggest action here, is talk to your team. Understand what they need, understand what they've had in the past that maybe they really miss. What would make them feel valued and connected? Have that help build your brand. And do this in a written format or verbally, either one. And don't do it just once, do it every single year. Survey the team, understand what they're looking for to help drive what you should offer as far as your employer brand to the public. While this is a really important piece, it's not everything. I also recommend completing a competitor analysis. So incredibly important for us, because we're not only competing with companies in our industry, we're competing with service-based businesses as a whole. So how do you complete a competitor analysis? You do your research just as you would an applicant. Find as much as you can through online efforts, word of mouth, things like that. And we'll talk about, what to look for and how to do your research shortly. But the biggest thing here is just get to work figuring out what others are offering, so that you know how you stack up. If you look at your unique value proposition and it's not unique and everyone's offering it, it's not a unique value proposition anymore. So definitely a really good component into building your brand and making sure you have something unique to offer. Finally, take all of the pieces together, your mission, your values, what your team needs, what sets you apart from your competitors, and again, put pen to paper. Create a document outlining these components and the action pieces that you're doing to back them up. And then once that's complete, once you have a really good framework of what you want your brand to be, it's time to share your brand. I think a lot of these, when you don't do that build component first and really put the time and effort into it, you're going to be a little bit weaker on the sharing component. So definitely make sure you start with that before you move on to sharing your brand. So sharing your brand, I want to note these 3 important parts before you start sharing your brand. Being authentic. I said I would repeat this, and I mean it, because it is such an important part. Being authentic with what your brand is, making it unique, and then incorporating those employee voices, because that's our culture is made up of our people. Our company is made up of our people. We have to incorporate those voices when it comes to sharing your brand. So like I said, these are pretty self-explanatory, so take them into consideration as we discuss, different ways to share your brand. I will showcase a few examples here. So number 1, sharing your brand on social media. You could have guessed that this was the first thing, right? Everyone's utilizing social media in some capacity. But I can imagine that social media can be a bit of an afterthought, and maybe you struggle keeping up with it. But imagine if you were able to provide a unique opportunity for your technicians or your CSRs to have a bit more ownership of your company social media. Maybe it's a specific person, maybe it's, you rotate this opportunity. Like we were talking about with growth and development, it's a really great way to tap into that, like we were talking about earlier, to give social media that's not a component of a text job, it's not a component of CSRs, but it can really give them a new sort of ownership opportunity. So here you have an example at Natural State Pest Control. They're using No Shave November, or Movember, as a great way to incorporate their team and do something a little different. It says, follow along as Troy promotes cancer awareness this month with No Shave November. It's quick, it's easy, it's creative. And when someone is doing their research of your brand, they're seeing, okay, I'm getting a feel for what Natural State brings to the table. And, I'm picturing myself at Natural State. So another example here, in a little glimpse into their team events, they're doing a Secret Santa. So like I said, keep in mind that as applicants are doing their research, they're imagining, can I see myself here? Are these my people? If you don't have any examples of that on your social media, it's really quick miss. So it doesn't take too much time to add your team and culture components to social media, but can go a really long way when you have the right applicant, applying for your positions. Finally, for Natural State, here's an employee spotlight. So again, a great way to connect with applicants and also engage with your existing team, providing that feeling of being valued and part of the family. And actually one of Natural State's core values that they display on their website is to be bold, which to them means be comfortable being yourself, bring passion and energy and fun to everything you do. And I think this is a great way that they highlight that value, not directly. It's not, oh, one of our values is be bold and here's how. It's just sort of mixed into their culture. So I know social media like this, especially with all the different graphics that they've utilized, it can be really intimidating, but there are a lot of free resources to help build, professional and eye-catching graphics that you can utilize across several, social media platforms. So one I suggest, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with, is Canva. That's Canva, Canva. It's an app if you're not familiar. And it's a great tool that is, easy enough for really anyone at your company to utilize. There are free components. There are paid options as well if you want to get even fancier. But yep, Courtney just dropped it in the chat, the link to Canva. I would definitely look into that if you want to take your social media up a notch instead of just, dropping in a comment and an image. You can make, really professional looking graphics. If you have any ideas or suggestions, again, to share with the group on sort of how you promote your employer brand and your team on social media, love to see it. But also, if you have any questions on social media, happy to answer those as well. Courtney is also our resident social media expert. She'll be like, don't say that. But she does lots of great things for social media, so I'm sure she has lots of tips and tricks for that. But a really great one to showcase your employer brand. Many of your applicants are going directly to social media to see what you have to offer. Next up, job descriptions. This may sound so simple and straightforward, but oftentimes it can be a big miss. Are you just talking about the responsibilities of the job, or are you going into your company and your culture? So I have an example here of a pest tech, just one part of the job description. It's a pest tech in Richmond, Virginia, and part of that description talks about benefits. And it's not just your standard benefits. It's, a lot of what we were talking about before. Hits a lot of those components, competitive salary, family first, and they explain exactly how they're following that, benefit. So family first, no weekend work, start and end your day with your family. Growth opportunities, we're growing rapidly, so you can be promoted quickly, all of those different types of things. So it sounds so simple, but many of our job descriptions are not including this information. Another example here, which is sort of unique, and it slightly aligns, but also I just thought it was really interesting. This job description showcases the hiring process, which I don't see very often. It may not be fluffy or, super culture heavy, but it does give applicants an idea of what to expect. And what is expected of them and the job. So the background check and drug screening obviously being big ones where, it may just help, I wouldn't say eliminate, but cut down on no-shows, things like that, if they know what they're getting into. So just a nice little tip there as well. I will also mention that we have an upcoming another webinar. It's not until December, apologies, but writing job descriptions can be tough. And we have ways that you can write those with AI. And Katie will give some tips on how to utilize AI for writing job descriptions. Definitely look into that if you're incorporating those job descriptions, or really anything. You can write your whole, talked about your employer brand and getting that pen to paper, use AI for it. It's a great tool. So we'll talk about more of that in December. Sounds so far away, but it'll be here before you know it. We also have reviews. if you thought reviews were just for your customers, you're missing out on definitely a growing part of the employer brand. The most common places to find employee reviews is on Indeed and Glassdoor. So here's an example one. If you are not sure if you have an Indeed or Glassdoor profile set up, I would definitely look into it. Make sure that your profiles are up to date, and see what reviews you have if you don't know. For reviews specifically, I would ask your employees if they're willing to leave an honest review about their experience. We want to build up that review platform, so that people who are looking for their experiences with employees have some examples to go off of. It's anonymous, and it should not be required by your team members, but as you work on carrying out your ideal culture and brand, why not hopefully get positive and public feedback to share with those looking to take their next step. Finally, we have your website. How many of you, and feel free to drop in the chat, feel your website accurately reflects your values, your employer brand, and who you are? I'm sure there's a mixed bag. But it is such a great way to utilize a very public space for your employer brand, as well as your customer brand as well. So here's an example from the Bugman. They actually have a whole section of their website dedicated to sharing their employer brand. You'll see this specific screenshot is just for employees or applicants. So in the right-hand corner, they have contact our hiring manager today. This is not for lead generation. Contact our hiring manager, view open positions. They talk about their culture, meeting the team, why work with us, all centered around driving applicants. Another example here, we have a section about why you should join their team, which talks about their culture being focused on a career and not just a job, with people who care about you as a person. Showcases the team as well, looking all happy. There's also team member profiles where applicants can get a sense for the team and what they care about. And, again, going back to that sentiment of, can I see myself here? So I love this, is this you component of that. Can they see themselves being part of the Bugman team? Another example of, again, showcasing their benefits, a must-have when it comes to talking about your employer brand and taking it to the next level on your website. All of these things should be on your website somewhere. Of course, we might not be feasible for everyone to have a multi-page section on your website to promote your career opportunities like the Bugman has, but at least a page outlining your values, why you're the best option, even when you're not hiring. This is not just about hiring. Having this all year round is so important. So if you are fully staffed for the year, of course, we know that can change on a dime. I would definitely take the time to make sure that your website is up to date right now before it's needed. So if you're looking for more help with careers, I will definitely push you a little shameless plug to Coalmarch. We can help you build a career site, whether that's whether you're a customer of Coalmarch or not. We do offer sort of a separate careers site to help build your employer brand and really communicate all of those great things that you're doing for your team. So next, let's talk about employer branding mistakes that we want to avoid. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Being inauthentic will destroy your brand. Seeing one thing on your job description and then having another experience in real life is the exact opposite reputation you want to have. So making sure that things are communicated effectively and accurately, and then done the same way in real life is important. Number 2, not understanding your ideal realistic candidate. We all want the best of the best, but what does that really mean? A suggestion here is creating a physical document that identifies what you deem is an A player in your mind. What does an A player technician look like? Write it down. Give the bullet points of what you expect. Maybe think of that specific team member in your mind. What do they do that sets them apart and makes them an A player? I love using this internally with the team to sort of showcase specifics of what you expect from your team and what makes an A player, but it's also important to communicate publicly as well. This allows you to focus on who you're after and what they care about as well. Definitely recommend the A player definition. Like I've mentioned, your company and your target audience changes. So evaluating what's working and what's not every so often is crucial to making sure you're leading with intention. Have to reevaluate often. And then finally, unfortunately, you're not in complete control of your employer brand. You, of course, will have those employees who just don't get the vision. They don't understand your goals. They don't align with your goals. You cannot 100% control the message that reaches your potential employees. And that's okay. Focus on what you can control, and you'll be much, much better for it. But it is an important thing to consider. So to recap, evaluate your brand and what makes you unique, tweak your brand as the market and your business shifts, and share your brand publicly. I also have one final resource for you all. This is you can utilize this QR code, which will take you to a link to our ebook where you can find many of the items that we discussed today in written forms. You have that in your possession. But thank you so much for your time. Questions I can answer for you. I don't think we have any in the chat, but happy
So
to
it
answer.
looks like we do have one question in the chat and questions sections are separate. They always throw me off.
Oh yeah.
Looks like Kirsten asked, any
Okay.
suggestions on how to develop a social media team? More specifically, how to aggregate, edit, and post content regularly using several people. Any thoughts
Yes.
on that?
Great question. So my first suggestion, and we actually have a blog about this on the Coalmarch website, is having that social media team come from within your team. And I don't know if that's what you intended to do, but I would suggest having your social media be in-house if at all possible. Especially when it comes to your employer brand, because it is so personal to you. But as far as building it within the team, and I'm not sure if this question came before or after we started talking about it a little bit. But I would really encourage getting your team members, trusted team members, on a committee of sorts. You can have the social media committee where they meet to brainstorm ideas, and delegate different concepts throughout the year, and assign different things that everyone's responsible for. If you do have budget dedicated towards social media, I would look into scheduling softwares like Hootsuite is a good one, where everyone can see what posts are scheduled to be communicated, see how those perform, interact, those types of things, so that it's not people stepping over each other. But definitely creating a content calendar, and planning in advance through a committee type group would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the content calendar. I feel like it'll be what makes or breaks you for sure, having that plan in place. Hootsuite is awesome. I also recommend later.com. They're good for scheduling, and a little bit lower price point depending on the size of your business, what you're looking for. And then even just going kind of back to the OGs, Facebook, or excuse me, Meta Business
Yeah.
Manager. Actually does have a really great scheduling tool, for if you're mostly doing Facebook and Instagram. If that's kind of where you're starting, I feel like they have a pretty solid scheduling tool as well. So that's always an option. And you can build a content calendar within their apps. So just a few different options to keep in
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah, good suggestions. All right. Happy to answer any other questions, but if not, it was great chatting. Um, Feel free to reach out via email. My email is rkirkpatrick@workwave.com. I'll go back to this last slide with the QR code for the ebook. Please feel free to download. Would love your insight as well. All right, well, we'll see you next month. I forget what our next webinar is. Courtney, you want to plug that?
Absolutely. Yes. Um, I will actually be in Europe during our next one,
Oh,
so someone else will be leading this section. But it'll be Tuesday, June 11th, and our topic next month will be proximity, how to combat Google's most unfortunate ranking factors. And I believe that will be Tess Howard leading that one. So feel free to go ahead and sign up, or if not, we'll send you a nice little reminder in a couple weeks to register. And hopefully we'll see you then. We look forward to it.
awesome. Thanks so much, Courtney. Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
Bye, y'all.